Going to call our 6:15 work session to order tonight, and so I'll go ahead and open that work session. Tonight we're going to look at the proposed city code amendments, and we'll have Heather, she sent her slides out to you in your email if you want to follow from that perspective. The code amendments were a part of your packet, and they've been also passed out to you at the dais. And so, Heather and group, welcome. Nick, it's good to see you. Go ahead to Heather.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Tonight we're going to talk about code compliance and community relations, and I wanted to start off by introducing you to our two code compliance officers, Nick Miles and Claudia Martinez. We're at our 6-month sort of dashboard in terms of the code compliance program coming over to planning. I'd come to you in June of last year and talked a little bit about that transition and what we hope to achieve. So tonight what we want to do is come back to you and say what we've been doing over the last 6 months and some of the prep work that we're doing in terms of an action item that will come to you in the future with a code amendment. So I will lead the discussion to talk through sort of the code amendments, and then Claudia and Nick are going to tell you what they've been doing over the last 6 months. There's a lot of exciting things, and then also what they have planned.
Hi, I'm Claudia Martinez. I am new to the city of McMinnville. Previously, for the past 5 years, I have worked.
Could you move the mic a little closer?
In Hill County.
There we go.
I was doing foreclosure counseling, and before that, I was doing a little bit of Section 8 waitlist coordinating.
And my name is Nick Miles, and I started in September last year. Also new to working with the city prior to working here in code compliance. Had a hodgepodge of jobs, was a photographer, videographer, worked around McMinnville, graduated from Linfield College, love town, so I'm excited to be back serving in this capacity.
And Claudia, I'm no longer contagious, so you can. I'm sorry. All right, so tonight we do want to talk to you about proposed code amendments that we'll be bringing to you and then in the near future, and then what our 6-month update looks like. The value of code compliance, we talked about a little bit about this last time I came to you, but really we spend a lot of work putting plans together for the community in terms of how the community will develop and the vision for the community. We have codes that then sort of memorialize those to ensure that they happen. So code compliance is really making sure that our community vision moves forward and continues to operate as everyone originally envisioned it. I like to think of it as it's a good neighbor playing in the sandbox by the same set of rules and program for everybody's benefit. So we're all playing in that same sandbox together. So the proposed code amendments in front of you tonight are something that we brought to you in our presentation on June 26, 2000, or I did, because I hadn't been lucky enough to hire Claudia and Nick by that time yet, but in June of 2018, and there was a recommendation to move a centralized administrative process forward. So our code enforcement program has been a program that's been managed through the court system in terms of bringing properties to compliance that weren't brought to compliance in a voluntary manner. We thought there might be a way to do it slightly different than that would be more efficient and save resources and yield faster compliance if we brought it into an administrative program. It relies still on voluntary compliance. That's always the goal. And then the tools to get to compliance, if voluntary compliance is not possible, is the ability to issue administrative citations and then also do administrative abatements. Currently, we would cite someone into the court system. They would come into the court system and stand before a judge, or counsel would be there as well as the officer, and there would be a hearing and some sort of decision from that in terms of how to move forward. That's a fairly lengthy process. It takes a lot of resources in terms of staff time to move a case through the court system. We have one case that has been in the court system for many years. Recently, working towards resolution, but has taken a lot of city resources to get there. And so we think that this may be a more efficient program to manage. In June, we said we would evaluate the codes for nuisances and code compliance issues. We would amend the municipal code to create this administrative process. We would create a centralized program in the planning department. So prior to that, it was a little decentralized. Every department was responsible for their own code enforcement program. And then we would develop a community relations program. So that's what we said we would do. We're going to talk to you tonight about how we've done that. The goal is, again, still voluntary compliance, and we expect to do that through education, information, communication, and relationships. That is 90% of what we're trying to achieve. There will be the non-voluntary compliance issues, which we will work through with a goal of full cost recovery for the city when we go into abatement. So the process itself that we're bringing to you in these proposed code amendments is to bring compliance into a timely manner. See, I am so glad someone gets my humor out. Welcome, Zach. So the time frame is a 21-day test. That's what I talk a lot about, is this 21-day test. How do we get what's not in compliance into compliance within 21 days? And the code before you tonight is written in such a way to get us there. It's based on 2 10-day markers, and then the final day being abatement, if it hasn't been abated by then. So the first 10 days is when we're notified of a potential situation being non-compliant. We send a letter and we ask for voluntary compliance. So we identify there could be an issue. Do you agree? If you agree, let's mitigate the issue, take care of it. And hopefully within that 10 days, a lot of people don't even know that they're out of compliance. If they don't know and want to comply, they'll get into compliance just with that initial letter. We'll then go back in 10 days. If we haven't gotten them to compliance, that's when we'll go into this judicial process where we will send a certified letter and post the property and let them know that you have 10 days to get into compliance. If you don't, we will abate it. If we abate it, we will invoice you for the costs and lien the property if you don't pay back that invoicing for the full cost recovery. And so it gets into a much more serious discussion. At this time as well, we could go into a citation process. We could also say, based on what's happening, we are willing to cite you, and we could cite you daily, as well as get into this abatement process. And then by day 21, presumably, we're in abatement of some means. So either they've done it or we are going to do it. So it gets us to a time frame of within 21 days of abating whatever is not in compliance. The structure of the code in front of you tonight, the intent behind that was to simplify our nuisance chapter. The nuisances were in our municipal city code in many different places. In Chapter 8, they were somewhat disparate in there as well. What we wanted to do was bring them all together, identify what they were, and then line them up into this sort of streamlined process so that whatever we did in terms of notification and abatement, it was the same. Primarily for all the nuisances, if there's a public safety issue, we do have the ability to move quicker than that 21-day test. And then we wanted to be able to allow for the citation, so you'll see that in the code as well. What we did to get here is we reviewed the existing code and we talked about modernizing it. So we had code in there that talked a lot about barns and stables and, what would be out of compliance with barns and stables in the city of McMinnville. We don't have a lot of barns and stables in the city of McMinnville anymore, so you'll note that that's no longer part of the code. We had something in the code that talked about noises, but so you couldn't make noise to sell goods except for newsboys could yell on the corner to sell the newspaper. So we removed that from the code too, and just got into a more modernized way of approaching it by saying there are levels of metrics for what is a nuisance. So for noise, we put metrics in there. If it's exceeding this, that would be what exceeds the nuisance level. We then research best practices in comparable cities. So we do this as a norm in the planning department. We have a normal list of 8 cities that we look at that we see as comparable to McMinnville, and we look at what they're doing and ask what's working, what's not working. Claudia and Nick have also been going to both state and national code enforcement conferences for training and have created their own network and resources, and so they've been using that as well and bringing those tools to the table. I should note that the document that I sent out to you did have a reference in it to one of our comparable cities, Redmond. And so what you have with you tonight, I actually deleted that reference. We brought all these best practices together, we aggregated them, we talked about them, and that was not meant to carry forward in the code, and it did inadvertently, so I apologize for that. We met with the judge who, in the municipal court system, is overseeing our code enforcement program today, and sat down and talked about how can we, this is what we want to do. We want to streamline it, what makes sense from your perspective. Are we approaching this in the right way? We still want to retain a relationship with that judge, and so we had a discussion about what that would look like from a judicial position. And then we amended the code for objectivity. So there's a lot of language in there of, too much noise is too much noise. Well, how do you defend that? And so we wanted to bring the objectivity into the code. I do want to let you know there's still review needed on the code. It does need to be reviewed internally by the different city departments, and so I will get that out to everyone, and then legal counsel does need to review it as well. So we're bringing it to you just to sort of show you what we're thinking, to get major feedback on any sort of larger fatal flaws you see in the process, because the code will continue to tweak and be refined until we bring you a final product for an ordinance consideration. The outline for the code is we have initially described all the nuisances. In one section, we have a general section of nuisances. We have nuisances affecting public health. That's an important section because that's where we may move in a quicker manner. We have attractive nuisances. Claudia and Nick will talk to you a little bit about that, but that's nuisances that are attracting children that could be creating safety issues. And then we have nuisances associated with animals. We consolidated all those codes. Some example of it is we had fence language in 3 different sections of the McMinnville City Code. We were constantly looking through all the sections when people were asking about fences. So we brought it all together as one, where it made sense from a nuisance perspective. We consolidated the animal codes as well. We had those in many different sections. We added metrics to the unnecessary noise. We added 2 sections I wanted you to be aware of. So most of what's in there in terms of nuisances are things that have been historically in our code, but we added a section that talks about parking and storage of vehicles in front yards and side yards that are not in driveways or on turf. We've had a lot of complaints about that over the last 6 months. Claudia and Nick, as they've been out, have been talking to people. And so we looked at what other communities were doing in that regard, and we've brought to you a recommendation that if people want to park cars in their front yard outside of their driveway, that they should have some sort of delineated surface for that. It could be gravel, asphalt, or concrete. And that not the whole yard could be encumbered in that way. That is something I want to bring to you and get feedback from you on. And then we also added another section in the code that was trash, recycling, and yard debris containers. That is a request from Recology in terms of the containers that they provide and how long they are left out on the curb or in the street. So we have in the code that it can be left out for 24 hours before pickup, 24 hours after pickup, but not the whole week. And interestingly enough, we fielded a couple of calls about that today, people calling. The next part of the code, which is the process for abating, is we identify how do we identify nuisances. I want to point out to you in this language that there is language that will do it from a complaint basis, but we'll also do it in a proactive way too. And that's one of the programs that Nick and Claudia are going to talk to you about tonight. And I wanted to make sure that was transparent and in the code. And then we talk about what the nuisance abatement procedure will be. We'll notice the property owner, as I described to you. And then the owner can abate it, or the city can abate it with a warrant that's been approved by the judge. or the city can approve it without a warrant based on what's described in the code. And what's described in the code is that we need to abate it because it's a public safety issue. And the judge that is language that was recommended by the judge when we sat down and met with him. We will look for full cost recovery on the abatement costs, so that means we're going to look at the indirect cost allocation plan. It's not going to just be whatever we pay the vendor to abate the weeds. It will be the cost of staff involved in the processing of it. So it is truly cheaper for the property owner to do it themselves. And then there's appeals process in there with a hearings officer. And then we also identify that violations will be considered continuing violations on a daily basis from a citation perspective if we need to go into that. We have provided citation authority and created 3 different sets of violations, A, B, and C, and have assigned different nuisances into those 3 sets of violations. And presumably, we would pass a fee schedule that identifies the costs associated with those. I put in the staff report recommendations of Class A being $500, Class B $250, and Class C $100. That's what we are finding in other communities for those. So with that, I wanted to see if there were any questions relative to the proposed code amendments that are in front of you tonight.
I have some. So in the definitions, 8.020.015, number 4, noxious weeds. It says include but are not limited to those varieties listed in 2018 Oregon Department Agriculture Noxious Weed Policy and Classification System. And I was wondering if, I was questioning whether it made sense to identify a year or to have that being the most current identification by the ODA.
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion, and I'm also sure it's probably one our legal counsel will catch as well when we go through this. But yes,
Okay.
thank you, we'll do that.
The second one that I had concerns over was the entire section on bees. 8.020.022, it's page 15 and here. My concerns about the bees being listed as an animal nuisance are multi-tiered. One, I think there's some generally accepted knowledge that we need bees. We have collapsing colonies. So viewing these as a nuisance or wanting them out of the city when our very food is dependent on them, I think is an approach that I question. And then if it was compelling that there needed to be some code enforcement around bees, to me what's in here seems kind of either very restrictive in some areas. For instance, the setbacks are stricter than building code setbacks for most development, and the necessity of fences, and it just seems kind of overly strict. And then part of it also seems unreasonable to me as we get down into F1. An individual who is allergic to bee stings shall file with the city police a medical certificate attesting to his allergy and shall provide information concerning the location of the beehive or colony and its distance from his property. To me, that seems like too far of a step and kind of an unreasonable step to think that somebody would need to file with the city if they had a bee allergy. So I would propose that the entire section on bees was struck, and if not struck, that it was greatly revised.
So so this is all language that existed in the code. From what I understand, this is where the allowance to have bees comes from. There's no other section of the code that would allow bees in the city of McMinnville. And what this does is it sort of prescribes how it is allowed. And if you exceed that allowance, that's where it becomes a nuisance. So it talks about no more than 3 bee colonies and things of that nature. If we struck it entirely, bees would not be allowed in the city of McMinnville. And most of what you see in this animal section is relative to intensity, I guess is the way I would describe it, and how much or how often you can have these different types of animals in different areas. I haven't looked at this actual bee language. I understand from the planning department staff that this was fairly controversial when it was brought forward and put together. We can look at it and see if it's similar to other communities. Just looking at it really briefly, it reads very similarly to what I've seen in other communities. The discussion about the medical certificate, if somebody lives next to a neighbor that has a bee colony, and they're nervous about it, that's when they would come to the police department and file their certificate, so that there's awareness from a safety perspective.
I can give some background on that because I was on the planning commission at the time. We had a significant amount of testimony, both in favor of having bees in town and people really concerned about the medical issues associated with them. So this was a compromise that came out of a lot. Not saying that we can't amend it, but it might be something that people have a lot of input into if it's changed significantly. So I think that medical part came out of trying to help people who have allergies or sensitivities feel comfortable with the ordinance being in there.
We can do a best practice review, though, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask that we kind of review it almost entirely. I mean, A, B, D, F.
See if we can.
Especially when it comes to some of the setbacks seem to be, to me anyways, they seem to be too grand.
Especially as we get bigger. I mean,
Yeah. And then my last concern was having to do with construction debris, which is
Number 18.
page 18?
It's on page 13.
Page
That
13,
number
thank you.
18.
So that was, my concern there was specific to the dust and debris. In the 18, the first line reads, "No debris of any kind, including dirt, dust, sand, or other wind-borne material shall for any reason progress beyond the perimeter of any property that is being developed for construction or where construction is in progress." So in theory, I agree with the sentiment of that, and then in practice, I wonder, how can you stop dust from a construction site from blowing in the wind? So it's not that I think the intent is bad.
I also have that question. How do you stop that from?
Yeah, so that's just a practical question of not putting something in the code that's then not really enforceable without shutting down a construction site for.
Yes, so we'll look at best practices for that. I think that is, we've done enforcement on this, actually. We've had calls from neighbors who have been impacted by construction on properties next to them where the construction debris was migrating onto their property, and we did go into code enforcement on it, and it was rectified. In terms of the objectivity of the language, we can look at strengthening that.
Yeah, there's all sorts of erosion control measures that you can put in place that are already written.
Yeah, and we do have public works standards already for constructability of sites and things of that nature, and wetting them down in different conditions.
But erosion control specific for like, oh, you got to go out there and protect the storm drains and the other? Okay.
But yeah, we could look at that.
Okay, thank you. Those were my 3 thoughts.
Zach?
Not a specific line in here, but maybe something that wasn't in here that is a process question I have is, when you get to abatement, who authorizes and/or prescribes the abatement? Does that question make sense? So you have a 36-inch weeds out there or whatever. Who says, okay, yes, we're going to hire the landscaper to go out there and cut them?
So that would be, we will have The code says yes, because it's not discretionary anymore, because it says 10 inches. So if the property owner does not comply, then the code compliance officer, either Nick or Claudia, have the authority to say, and it's based on what's written in the code, it will say the city manager or designee, and the designee is the two code compliance officers, have the ability to say, okay, we need to get a vendor in here, and they will have we'll go through a procurement process to create a list of competitive vendors that we will use for different things.
That was my other question, was what's the procurement process for hiring that in each case? But there'll be a preferred list of
Yes,
people to solve identified problems?
right.
And so to recap, you're saying that the code compliance, the authority to initiate the abatement process will rest in the code compliance officer?
It truly rests in the city manager's
Oh, okay.
authority, and the city manager can designate
Okay.
it. So,
Thank you.
as written in the code right now.
Al?
Heather, thank you. Excellent work as usual. I had a couple of questions about the abatement process. Earlier, when you came and talked to us about this previously, you had said that in code compliance, we might also look during the abatement process at whether there are any opportunities for community support for people who are struggling, like senior citizens who are running into these kinds of issues. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, I'm actually going to defer that. So we're halfway through the presentation, and Claudia and Nick have, their presentation is all about setting up those community events.
Okay.
And how to do that sort of community relations piece of it. So I want to make sure we're able to get to that.
Jump the gun.
That's all right.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Other very technical questions as to things that shouldn't or should be in the code?
I have one.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Question, and I'm not sure if it fits in here, but when you have those timeframes, is that a timeframe that say it was something that would take a longer period of time for abatement? Is that a timeframe in which they need to start and complete, or a timeframe that they need to have a plan initiate? What needs to happen with?
So the intention is, and I'll work with legal counsel to make sure that this allowance is in there. The intention is that the code compliance officer has some discretion in terms of how they work with the property owner. So if the property owner gets back to the code compliance officer and says, I get it, I need to get it done, I'm out of town for 6 days, can I get it done by this date? And they agree upon it, that can be part of the abatement program that they put together.
So they could be allowed that time. If
Yeah,
An
and
agreement.
we'll make sure that there's some language in there that allows that discretion.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Heather, just a couple of things. Again, very good job. When I looked at how thick this was, I'm going, oh, this is my whole afternoon reading. But it read very, very easily, and it was understandable to me. A couple of things that I'm glad to see under the area of trees. I think it falls right in line with our landscape review committee and the things that we're doing there. Sidewalk, and some of those things. Fences, very detailed. The question I do have, though, is discarded vehicles and parking and storage of vehicles in front and side yards. We've seen a number of situations within the city where that's been, I think, really hard to enforce for us. I think the specifics that you get into helps us. So I'm going to turn to David, and we have a property on West Side Road that we've been dealing with for about a year now, where the vehicles were scattered all throughout the front. Does this give us more opportunity to come in compliance? And I'm helping Kelly, and I think I'm helping Zach on this.
So maybe if I lead, you can follow.
I was just going
with
to say,
all the-
I haven't gotten far enough along in my review of the proposed ordinance to answer that question, so I would defer to Heather.
Go ahead, Heather.
So the existing ordinance, the existing city code has a fairly lengthy process for discarded vehicles, and it's emblematic of what is occurring in the code today, which is nuisances are dealt with in different ways. So the discarded vehicles is a fairly lengthy, it's a fairly convoluted process to get through in terms of getting to full abatement and compliance. What we've done is, in the recommendation in front of you, is we've deleted that whole section and we rewrote it. And we simply said is, this is what's considered a nuisance in terms of discarded vehicles. We've made it fairly objective. If the vehicle is this, or this, or this, it's a nuisance. If it is a nuisance, you need to take care of it. If you don't take care of it, we will take care of it.
And so that's how I read it, and I think it's going to be much more, we're going to be much more successful.
Yeah, and Claudia and Nick have worked on a couple of these actually situations, and they have some before and after pictures for you where they have been successful with it.
I did have one other thing, too, I'm sorry that I missed earlier. It was related to barbed wire, and I was just, on fences, and I was just thinking about this limits barbed wire on a fence if it's along a public right-of-way, and I was just thinking about some of our industrial districts and use of barbed wire, especially when they're storing a lot of heavy metals and things of that nature. And that there might be some concern from those business owners about losing that security perceived or not.
Yeah, so actually, it'd be great to get direction from City Council on that. Mike Bissett brought the same thing to my attention. This is existing language that has been in the code for a long time, so it's not new language. And my question to Mike was, how do we deal with this in the past? If it wasn't allowed, why is it allowed and exists? So that's a dialogue we need to have.
Historically, code enforcement has been my understanding is that it's been primarily complaint-driven. So with some of these changes, is there going to be a change in approach as well? Will it still remain fairly complaint-driven, or will it be?
We're going to do some neighborhood revitalization programs, which we'll share with you. So I can't say it's only going to be complaint-driven. The proactive approach will be an approach that is sort of a rising tide raises all ships and not targeting an individual property necessarily.
Sorry. And the main reason why we want to do a proactive approach is that way we know, and we really do want to just fairly and equally enforce the safety, the health, and the nuisance codes to all of the city of McMinnville, and not just certain neighborhoods or not certain homes of where a neighbor is mad at the other and they keep just calling code enforcement on each other. So we just really want to make it citywide, equally and fairly.
So Mayor, if you don't mind, it looks like we only have about 9 minutes left. I want to make sure Claudia and Nick have an opportunity to share with you what they want to do, so. Do you guys want to go?
Okay, so yeah, like Heather mentioned, we just want to run through kind of some nuggets of what we've been up to for the last 6.5 months. We're going to share a little bit about how we've structured the program internally for Claudia and I to operate and be as available as we can for the citizens. Some case statistics about the types of calls we are receiving, the types of code violations we're observing, some pretty great success stories we've had just in the short time we've been operating. We're going to talk a little bit about our community relations programming that Heather had mentioned, and also take a look at the calendar of events that and focus areas we have for the year.
And why code compliance? So our main focus is pretty much to improve property values. Code compliance decreases the numbers of attractive nuisances. It improves safety, sense of community, public image, and it also improves quality of life. It reduces health threats. It positively impacts economic development, and it also promotes neighborhood revitalization.
So some things that we've gotten off the ground, we have a dedicated phone line set up for code compliance, so that will ring to Claudia, and if she's not available to answer, it'll roll over to me. So now we have one number that we can distribute to anybody that wants information, and that'll come to us. So we're trying to defer folks from calling YCOM or the police or fire and give them a direct line to get in touch with us, which has been a really big help. We have set up the new Code Compliance and Community Relations website, so folks can hop online there. There's a code complaint form on the next slide, I think, over. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable calling in or, letting us know, they can go online and submit if that's what's most comfortable for them. They can upload photos, so that can save us a trip out to do an inspection. And if you go back, one more. We have our proactive patrol mapping and schedule. We've broken the city down into 6 sections. So each of those sections is being visited once every 2 weeks. We started this about a month ago, and it's given us a chance to kind of be out, be more visible, introduce more folks to the program and some of the nuisance violations that they might not have been aware of before. So yeah.
And some of the examples of noncompliance, usually they're animals, dogs at large, chickens roaming freely, rats, and noise complaints usually come about barking dogs, construction, loud music, nuisance, usually it's junk, rubbish, discarded vehicles, structure, unpermitted structure in buildings, unsafe structures, like for example, old homes that no one's currently living in, and the roof is just sinking in. Tree removal, when neighbors just randomly go out in the planter strip and remove all the trees. We've been called for that one. Other examples for weeds, noxious vegetation, taller than 10 inches. Other miscellaneous items would be objects, branches in the right-of-way, political signs, abandoned homes, and this miscellaneous also, the garbage cans, leaving them out the full week, accumulating garbage, and then cats getting into the garbage cans, and pulling garbage bags and garbage out of the cans. That's actually one of my first complaints that I used to receive, and it was a little difficult to enforce it just because we don't have anything specific for garbage containers being removed in a timely manner. But thankfully, we were able to get through that hurdle. So just adding the particular garbage being removed within 24 hours and not being left there all week would definitely be helpful to us to enforce that.
So this gives you a bit of a breakdown of the complaints or the compliance issues that we have been tackling. As you can see, the largest piece of the pie is made up by nuisances, and a lot of that is junk and accumulation of rubbish. So some of the other things in that category, we've talked about animals, noise, structure-related issues. The small piece up there is health-related things. Heather had mentioned that public safety, public health cases we try to move pretty quickly on. Fortunately, we haven't had too many yet. And this is some statistics on what we've processed so far. So you can see, I think this goes back to just at the end of last August when Claudia got things off the ground. We've had a total of 158 cases come through the department, and of those 158, we've been able to close 122 of them, and that's all through voluntary compliance. So we haven't had to do any abatement. Some of those cases, we've had to grant some extensions on deadlines like we talked about earlier, and Claudia and I have been really working hard to kind of set deals up with folks that call in if there's family issues going on, traveling, holidays, weather, and we've had some really great success with folks complying with that and holding up their end of the bargain. We do have 36 still open. We have a lot from the last couple of weeks from doing our proactive approach, so that number would be a little bit lower, but we've got a couple extra on our desks to get through. So we'll jump into some success stories. So we had a property that, as you can see on the right, they had a pretty excessive storage situation going on of materials that typically belong inside the home. as well as quite a bit of garbage, hoses, you name it. So this is a rental property, and we were able to get a hold of the landlord and property owner, and within 3 weeks, we had the whole property cleaned up, and he actually had some service companies inside the duplex you see there, and they did a remodel. From what I could tell, they gutted the inside, so it was great that the work we were able to get them to do on the outside translated into some stuff going on inside.
The next slide is a vacant home. This was a foreclosure, and this would have been an attractive nuisance. So in the back, this pool has an in-ground pool. It didn't have an enclosure. The gates were wide open for children to pretty much come in, come see what we have in the back type thing. The front door, when I approached it, it was wide open as well, inviting in homeless individuals, anyone trying to escape from their parents. Inside, of course, there's, I don't know what was going inside, if the structure's good, etc. And so what I did there is I contacted the field services. Unfortunately, those services aren't as fast as we would like them to be, and this would be when an administrative warrant would have been great, an administrative abatement, because it did take about 2 weeks, and me calling them every 2 days to tell them, hey, get on it, you need to lock this. This could attract children. The next door neighbor had 3 smaller children under the age of 10. I was really scared for their safety, it had been raining. This was around October, November. Any child could have easily just went into the backyard, fallen onto the pool, and you have a tragedy there. So after 2 weeks, the field service agency came in, they locked the doors, and they locked the gates in the back. This is another one that I took in when I first started. When it moved from the police department to the planning department, and we didn't really know what to do there. The property owner had been sick. Through a lot of effort, we were able to contact a family member that went in there, mowed the grass, and took out the junk that was on the side of the garage. And this is actually the next slide. I'm extremely proud of it, of the work we did. So this is a before and after. Pretty sure they don't look anything alike. It's the same home. This is an individual that honestly had no idea that his home is in that condition. He doesn't live there. He visits maybe, I don't know, once every few years. So I contacted him and let him know what was going on, the complaint that came in. He cleaned it. It took more effort because he wasn't really happy with the complaint that had came in, and having him needed to clean that those weeds. But he did do extra work on it to clean it up and be in compliance. He did a great job. And this is another one that came in as well. And this is another happy ending. The person that called it in, they were trying to sell a home next door. And all the complaints that she'd received, why people weren't putting offers, was because of the next door neighbor. They were storing discarded vehicles on the side of the home, and on that flatbed, that little pickup had been there forever. They also had a little pool trailer in the planter strip. You're really not allowed to store things there. And so I contacted them, their tenants, and I worked with the landlord and the tenants to get that cleaned off. And after the property was cleaned, the person selling the property received an offer within 2 weeks. So that was really good.
This is a photo from our sign initiative that we put on back in November following the political season. So we noticed that there were a lot of complaints from various folks around town just regarding temporary signs in general. So we decided that we would dedicate some time to going out and dropping off some information to business owners about the ordinance, and then following back up in a few weeks to, ask them about compliance and get that moving. So you guys recognize this spot, Gibbs Tobacco, or the general area. And it turns out when I went in there to speak to each of the tenants, they all told me that they were competing against each other for sign real estate. So when one person stuck a sign out, every other tenant would put a sign out until this is what happened. So I had to kind of tell them, if I make them take their signs out, then everybody else will, and then you guys can each have one, and it's going to look great. And it's maintained that same look since everybody took their signs out, so I'm hopeful that it'll stick that way. And this one, not really a big story behind this, just another, pretty dramatic before and after. Rental property on the north side of town, sent a letter, and it was mowed within, a couple of days. And again, pretty substantial blackberry bushes. We have a lot of that around town, and there are a lot to take care of and get rid of, but this property owner spent a pretty long weekend, and they removed almost all of them, and there's other patches around the property that they also took care of.
So our proactive community relations program. So here's what we have in mind and what we plan on doing in the future. So we actually already have planned to attend a neighborhood watch meeting here in March. We really want to just form relationships with active members in the community. We want to be a part of the community. We're not here just to enforce and just to lay the law on residents. We want to help clean up the city and make it beautiful for everyone to live in, and everyone to be proud of saying, I live in the city of McMinnville, Oregon. And so we want to also attend community events to help educate. The biggest thing for us is education. A lot of the people that I've ran to that have code violations, they weren't even aware there was such rules or ordinance. So to us, it's just really educating. Education will take you a long way. And the proactive community relations programs, again. So another thing we would like to do is we would like to do a community cleanup days. We've seen that this is very successful in other cities to try and encourage residents to clean up some of the stuff that they may not be able to get rid of throughout the year. Maybe they just don't have the means to it, but we'd like to create a program where a couple times a year you're allowed to maybe put a couch on the side of the street, and Public Works and will come and pick it up. And we really want to try and do it by zones throughout the city, instead of just trying to focus on cleaning the city and doing a cleanup day, all of it in one day. We'd like to break it down by either by weeks or weekends, where individuals would be able to help clean up the city and be able to discard some of their garbage that they may have, bigger items, like I said, couches, discarded furniture, etc., without having to pay for it. And also Good Samaritan program. And this program is more like neighbors helping neighbors. We really want to set up a group of volunteers that will be able to assist elderly and disabled individuals to bring properties up to code, like mowing grass. I ran into a situation where a disabled resident was just putting the garbage out and didn't have garbage service. And so we would have been able to gather a volunteer and say, hey, this person just needs help taking their garbage to the dump or to Recology. Can you go and collect 6 bags of garbage that's outside their property? And that could have helped a lot in the situation.
And I think this slide just kind of touches again on our proactive approach that we'd like to continue using, visiting the city entirely and not just getting hung up on certain areas that tend to be problem areas. So again, that helps us raise awareness of the department and the program and the ordinances, and, you know, again, just increases the livability of McMinnville. And then lastly, we'll just give you a quick rundown of kind of the calendar. September, October, we submitted a brochure to be included in Recology's newsletter, so that went out to everyone that had service in McMinnville. November, December, again with the non-compliant temporary sign usage. January, February, we rolled out our proactive approach to code compliance in the 6 zones. In March and April, we'd like to continue with the strategic neighborhood focuses and figuring out how we might be able to break them down for these neighborhood cleanup days. As we get closer to, you know, summer and fire season, helping folks keep their tall grass and noxious vegetation trimmed down so that's not going to be a fire hazard. July and August launch some more of these community cleanup assistance programs, neighbors helping neighbors, and so on.
Questions?
Thank you. Again, we're running a little over, but any questions for Claudia or Nick or Heather? Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the code work you've done. And again, we'll look for that to be reviewed by department heads and the legal staff, and that coming back. I would suggest that anyone on the council that has questions, now we know code enforcers, and we can move towards talking with them and with Heather for anything that you'd like to include in the code itself. Heather, Claudia, Nick, thank you so very much, and we'll go ahead and close this portion of our meeting. And why don't we just take about 3 minutes if you want to take your plates in, and then we'll start our regularly scheduled council meeting.
Oh, thank you. Sure. One-armed.
What's that?
Broken arm or
No, no, no. No, I was just,
bad wing anyway?
oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
If I drop them.
No, 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 I didn't feel shut down. I just didn't have all my thoughts fully formed, so I was just like, oh,
Like, I hope
yeah.
I didn't make it harder for her.
No, 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 it's fine.
It's always good to revisit. Interesting at the time. I was surprised.
Right. Yeah.
We had before that, it's like, had
All right.
interesting,
Yeah.
a lot better. I guess if you're not
Let me take a look. There might be, it may be under this one of a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for, why don't you check with Marcia, because I've got, just going to her and see. She's sitting right over with Rich on the front row. Okay?
Reading your email?
Yeah. Just to see.
You know what property I'm talking about? The one on 27th and West Side Road. The one, yeah. I mean, there's a little more, what would I say, lined up, but it's still, they're abandoned. And the thing, whether they start or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's the big one that I always think of.
Surprises in Salem, or it's pretty much coming along how you anticipated?
I mean, it's as bad as I was expecting in a lot of ways, sure. Like, the governing coalition in the state.
Well, this one had probably 12.
Yeah, I remember that. That was
Plus,
the
he wrote the niceties on that.
Narrow set of.
I've never heard that.
Right now, the cities have no,
Okay, I'll call everybody back up to the dais.
none of the PERS solutions.
Good.
None of the revenue solutions help us. Committee.
I wanted him to go through you, though. It's good to see so many in the audience this evening. We welcome you to the February 12th, 2019 City Council. I'll go ahead and call us to order. Sal, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. What we will now do is go to our comments from citizens, and we will take, anyone may speak on a topic other than a matter that's in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We'll give you 3 minutes, and ask you to fill out the public comment card and turn those in. I have one this evening, and so Mark Davis, if you'd come and address the council. Good to see you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark Davis, 652 Southeast Washington Street. I've submitted to the council a letter regarding the garbage rates. I'm not going to read that in detail, but I do want to call your attention to it, especially the first point I made, which is I'm not opposed to what Recology is doing or their rates. What I'm interested in is what I would consider good governance. I think that the function of overseeing the rates is an important part of what the city council does. In most businesses, prices are set by market competition. In the case of garbage service, there's no competition. Therefore, the motivation for lowering your cost, if you're running a business, if you lower your cost, you improve your profit. In this case, this is flipped on its head, basically. If they spend more money, then they have a larger allowed expense level and their profit level goes up. So at the state level, you see, public utilities are actually regulated by the Public Utility Commission, big bureaucracy. City doesn't have that. So in essence, I think the city council serves as the Public Utility Commission here. So I have two concerns. I've detailed information there for you, but just in a general thing, I don't believe the information we're currently being provided by the garbage service provider gives the public a clear idea of what allowed expenses are, and if those expenses are reasonable. They have, if you look at their financial statement, I think it was in your March or your November 27th board packet, their financial statement showed $4 million in related party transactions. I mean, that's a lot of money that's moving around between affiliates in which we don't get any explanation of you know, what's going on. The franchise agreement document is 10 years old. In fact, if you look at it, it's between the city and Western Oregon Waste. It was turned over to Recology. I'm thinking that we're kind of long past the point of taking a look at that document and maybe modernizing it. I mean, we're no longer in the era of Ezra Cook and City Sanitary. I mean, we've got a corporation here with affiliates, and a lot of the things, the information that's talked about in that, I don't think is clearly covered in that franchise agreement document. And I would hope that, you know, we could, in the not-too-distant future, update that document to reflect the reality of what Recology is doing. And I'm not opposed to what Recology is doing. And once again, I want to repeat that. I'm not against Recology. I think they're doing a great job. I just think that this is a public information issue, and we need that information, and we simply don't have it with what we're getting right now. I guess in conclusion, I just say that, I mean, from my perspective, I'm a little concerned the city is spending general fund dollars that are kind of limited to audit Recology. It seems like we should be getting the information we want from Recology as part of the process. We granted them a franchise, which is guaranteeing them a, you know, more than a 10% return on their investment. And I think we ought to just, you know, it ought to be real simple. We ought to be able to get a breakdown of which affiliates are doing what for them and if those costs are reasonable. I mean, if we want to pay somebody then to review that, but for the fact that we have to hire somebody to go get that information for us, it just doesn't seem right to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, as always. We've got Mr. Kent Taylor. Good to see you, sir.
Pleasure to be here and see all of you. Lots of new faces, lots of young blood. There's some old blood here too, but
Kelly will probably take exception to that.
I wasn't
I'm
looking
pretty
at
young,
Kelly.
you know.
I'll be very concise here. I'm here to support the resolution 10C that renames, not renames, but names what's been known as the Northwest Neighborhood Park Project, the J. Pearson Neighborhood Park. One of the things I did do correct here was hire a lot of people that were both smarter than me and passionate about what they were in charge of. And there's probably no one more passionate about what he was in charge of than Jay. And both from the physical standpoint of parks, what they look like, what they did for people, and trails, and how they connected people, but most of all, the people that use the parks, the kids, the families. I know he still gets joy out of it and satisfaction, and the reality is lots of things we take for granted around here in terms of parks and recreation would not have happened without Jay's passion. And he could be stubborn at times, he could be persistent. I'm sure he got frustrated with me a lot. But the passion you could never question, and the results speak for themselves, I think. And lots of kids and families and old people like me have reason to thank Jay, and I think this is a very fitting honor for him, for people that are using the park system to be reminded of Jay's contribution. And he's here with Becky, and I think we all know that spouses of people that work in Jay's kind of position spend a lot of time without their husband or wife around because they're at meetings in the evening or doing other things related to their job. And so I'd like to thank Becky for all the support she gave Jay over time, and seek Jay's forgiveness for all the times he was frustrated with me. And but it's understood, and I just hope you'll pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent, and we will have that opportunity a little later in our agenda tonight, but thank you for attending.
That's my bedtime. So.
Yeah. Again, thank you. Well, this evening, we are going to change things around a little bit in our off-site from a council perspective. There's one thing that we typically do at the very end of our meetings, and that is the advice and informational items where reports from the council on the committee assignments and board assignments and department head assignments. By the time we get to that, usually everyone's gone, and we felt that it's really in being more transparent and more prepared to share what the good things are happening with our committee structure throughout the city, that we would move that right after our comments from our citizens. And so this evening, we're moving that up, and we're going to now have an opportunity to share with you briefly from each counselor assignments they may have, that the council will be kept aware of what's happening, the good work that's happening in our committees, and then also those that are in attendance, that you might be able to be brought up to speed on some of the things happening. So I'm going to go that way. Okay. Zach, you've had an opportunity to go to a couple meetings already.
I didn't hear the bus coming, but I guess
Okay.
I got hit by it. Thanks, Sal. Okay, so I'm the council liaison for 3 committees: Historic Landmarks Committee, Landscape Committee, and McMinnville Community Media. We'll do the easy one first. McMinnville Community Media has met once since I've been there. I wasn't able to attend that. They meet less frequently than most committees, so I'm hoping to, before the next one, which is in a while, catch up with Jerry for the first time. I've had much interaction with Jerry previously, so I'm looking forward to getting up to speed and seeing what I can do to help and what the council can do to help. Landscape Committee, last meeting they reviewed and approved their work plan for the future. I've connected Jamie Fleckenstein up with several people I know at the Conservation District and various other organizations that can help him achieve his end goals most soonly with Arbor Day, and then take that running and hopefully secure some grants for the exciting work he would like to do. And then Historic Landmarks Committee seems like a hot issue that's boiling up that could really impact citizens, is how do we tackle notification of current owners that they own and are on a historic landmark. A lot of things it's, ignorance to the law isn't an allowance for you to not obey the law, but how can we be better stewards of, hey, you're on a historic home, this is what it means. So maybe developing a packet or getting out in front of that and making that a more proactive, neighborly approach to historic notification. And then the cities or the committees decided on several high impact, high visibility things relating to the downtown. And it's been really good to see the body that the Chuck's packets that he makes and leads good discussions, and the committee runs with good discussions and is super concerned with precedent, which is huge for that body. And so there's a lot of good thought going on there about the decision we make is going to cascade, because often it's repeat people coming to the council, so they're looking for any crack or fissure and able to take that and run with it. And if, as we've decided, historic preservation is super important to our buildings, then we need to make sure that what we do is consistent throughout and doesn't set us up for failure later. So that's good. And then we're talking about some interesting thoughts and ideas on how to make that a more formal process by maybe making a change in location of where the committee meets and bestowing them with more of a presence in those meetings. So that's mine.
Thank you, Zach. Remy?
Thank you. So yesterday, the McMinnville Housing for Homeless Subcommittee met, and first we had updates from our various strategic doing groups, so I'll do my best to summarize those summaries. And Kelly, maybe if I leave anything out, please help me. But we have one group that is specifically looking at expanding shelter for victims of domestic violence, as domestic violence is the leading cause of homelessness in McMinnville. And so currently, this group is working with the county on identifying county tax foreclosures and trying to rehabilitate those properties and place them in service for a prescribed period of time to serve as shelter for families that are fleeing their homes due to domestic violence. There is a group that's specifically working with the Gospel Rescue Mission, and that group has, as a main goal, wants to fill the shelter beds, the much expanded shelter beds that are there, as the Gospel Rescue Mission is not currently always full. And to that end, they've created a flyer that is a rule clarifier, because there's it's become obvious that there's a lot of misinformation about what's allowed and not allowed at the Gospel Rescue Mission, and so that
it's focused seasonally too, just.
Yeah, a seasonal flyer, as there's a expanded emergency shelter available at this time. And that's not only being distributed through organizations that are serving those population, nonprofit organizations that are serving those populations. It's also now posted at the community center, and the chief has also provided that piece of information along with another flyer, which I'll get to momentarily, with his officers that are interacting with the homeless population. We did not hear from a group that's specifically focused on a tiny home project, as unfortunately none of their representatives were there, but we did also hear from
teens.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we did also hear from a group that's focused on bringing a youth center to McMinnville, modeled after a very successful youth center that happens in Newburgh. So that's a collaborative project between the county and YCAP, and it's mostly up and ready to go, save for a location. The location continues to be a hurdle. Different roadblocks keep coming up. The most recent location had a change in leadership, and so it got bounced back again. And so they're still pursuing that location, but also actively looking for other locations where a teen drop-in center could run many hours a day, and then that drop-in center helps those teens find housing, as well as provides a safe place and to get them into programming of various sorts. And that group is also looking at identifying needs beyond that into more specific groups. So 18 to 24, so youth that are over the age of 18 or have the ability to consent to different housing programs, et cetera, on their own, and then those that are under the age of 18 and are maybe not able to give that consent and may not have access to parental consent. We also had representation from the school district. Our homeless liaison advocate was there, Marcy Ingram. She works with K through 8, and one of the conversation points that came up was that most of our numbers in relation to homelessness are specific to the county, and so it's harder to understand our specific data for McMinnville. But she was able to supply some general numbers, including that in the K through 8, just in K through 8, not including the high school, she has over 230 students currently experiencing homelessness. To that end, we had some other updates happen. one of which is that our Counselor Sal Peralta took on this challenge of not having data specific to McMinnville, and was able to get to CAP Oregon and asked them to revise their the questionnaire that goes out for the point in time count annually. And so starting with the 2020 point in time count for the entire state now, the people will also be asked where they reside or spend most of their time. So cities across Oregon are now going to be able to benefit from having more specific area-specific location and data about people in their specific cities, not just in their counties. We also discussed a Synergy Summit that was recently hosted by YCAP, and this brought together cities from around the county, various administrators, mayors were there, department heads, as well as nonprofits, Habitat McMinnville, Habitat Newburgh, Love Inc., Willamette Valley Cancer Foundation, which is involved in keeping people from becoming homeless, because when they are surprised with unexpected medical bills, the Willamette Valley Cancer Foundation oftentimes provides financial assistance to keep people in their housing, and YCAP, Housing Authority, and a number of other representatives. And the question was kind of posed at large, what are the greatest challenges we face as a county? What work is being done? How can we stop overlapping or repeating of work? And then from that, we talked about what our greatest needs are, and city by city and over again, the message is that our greatest challenge when it comes to providing additional affordable housing and resolving homelessness is our lack of land supply. And then we also discussed the ongoing challenges with the area around Dustin Court and Marsh Lane, and we did come up with a different tack than we've been employing to this point. So we have developed, as this council's aware of, a safe overnight parking program that allows a person living in their vehicle or a family living in their vehicle to park on private property with management through Champion Team, a local nonprofit, and provided porta potty paid for by sponsors, and garbage service provided by Recology, sponsored by Recology. We've been doing a tremendous amount of outreach to businesses and different entities throughout the city seeking sites, and I think it would be fair to say that there's a general fear that has been met with that ask. And so instead we put together a small group of people, and we're going to, including Council President Menke and myself, go and do more direct outreach with the people living on Dustin Court and on Marsh Lane, and trying to engage them in the conversation of, do you have family or an employer or an acquaintance? Do you have a place? Are you aware of this program? And then linking them up with Champion Team and trying to get them involved in that programming. Of course, YCAP does regular outreach, as does the police department do regular outreach already on with the people that are residing in those two areas. And so the police department also now is carrying information about the safe overnight parking program. And so we're going to incentivize, work with YCAP and incentivize individuals there to get engaged, at least on a waiting list for this property, if not encouraging them to help identify a place that they can go themselves. And then we also heard a report about a new countywide housing and homelessness group that has kind of been reinvigorated. with Commissioner Casey Kula, the 10-year, the county had a 10-year plan to end homelessness, which clearly did not succeed, but it's also has closed. That time period, that 10-year plan has closed. And so there is a new group that's involves a lot of the same service providers and Health and Human Services, and they're focused on what can happen at a county level to increase access to housing and help to end homelessness. And our McMinnville Affordable Housing Task Force meeting is in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Remy. I know that was a long presentation, but there was a lot of good things going on. I think the council needs to be aware of the good work that's happening every single day around affordable, or the subcommittee on homelessness. And so, thank you. Wendy?
We just had our urban renewal meeting, and it was a special one. Heather had, well, I'll start from the beginning. We saw the Douglas Hotel downtown had a facade improvement grant that they were asking for. They're looking to open up the front and add windows. It's a really nice. Oh, sure. Sorry. They're looking to add windows to the front and make the property, the Douglas Hotel facade, look similar to the where Thai Country Restaurant is. We also talked about the 3rd Street streetscape project, and we have a really good group that's been put together for that. It's the first meeting for that is a long introductory meeting on Friday, so it'll be exciting. And we have a great group of citizen representatives and MURAC, and a great group of people together to start work on that. The parking structure was one thing that was evaluated as part of our capital project evaluations that we just did as a city of all of our buildings. And some information came back, a recommendation to have a consultant do a more in-depth evaluation of the structural needs of that parking structure. And so we talked about that a bit, and there was support from the MURAC advisory committee to, especially since there's some discussion about doing some things to make, as part of the parking study, doing some projects to make lighting and all of those things, that we want to make sure that we handle any structural issues that need to be handled first before we go into some of those other changes, so we don't have to double our work. So that was one thing that was approved by the advisory committee. You'll hear about the budget today, so I won't update you on that. But the big thing that was, we got Tom Kemper to come in, and he has a lot of experience with development projects and affordability projects, all kinds of different projects that we're looking at a lot in the urban renewal and in the city. And he had some great information. I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to take up too much time, but I took a bunch of notes about further research that I wanted to do out of it, and he's just a wealth of information. And he also expressed an interest in continuing to maintain contact, which I think we should definitely take advantage of, because he's going to be a wealth of information, not just from the perspective of having boots on the ground experience, providing some of these projects like mixed use and affordable housing and creative ways of financing them, but also from the developer side of how we can encourage the private investment as a municipality to be involved. So that was awesome. And then, well, I already said Friday will be our first 3rd Street planning meeting, so we should have more to report next meeting.
Thank you, Wendy. Just to update a little bit, Tom, for those that have been to Bend and have visited Visit Bend, the building that Visit Bend is, Tom did that structure with the parking structure, the mixed use that's a part of that. Just very innovative. A couple of us had an opportunity to go out to dinner with him, and again, just walked away with a great resource for us in the future. And Heather has worked very closely with Tom in the past. And then we also found that Walt Gout is, they went to law school together, And so they were very close, and so, again, a great resource. Adam, I'll move down to you.
So YCOM hasn't met since our last council meeting. We actually meet Thursday at 3 o'clock in room 32 if anybody's bored. And our January meeting we met, but we didn't have a quorum. So no official business was handled, but we had a 30-day update from our go live date of the new CAD system for YCOM. Pretty much all things positive. There's a couple users that were having some issues, I think, which was to be expected with it being a new system. The other change that could affect us as a city is the methodology for billing calls. Before, we only got charged if apparatus was actually rolled out on a call or officers were deployed, where now YCOM's going to consider it a billable call if it comes in. So if there's a fire alarm, that apparatus actually never left the fire station, but there's still YCOM work being done on that end, it will be billed to that user. Dundee's exploring options of coming on board as a partner and how that would look. And then with the airport commission, the avgas fuel tank's a big topic. We obviously passed some funding for that, so that contract's been awarded, and now it's wait and hope for that vendor to get that project done so some piston aircraft can refuel at our local airport.
Thank you, Adam. Sal?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm the McMinnville representative on the Mid-Valley Council of Governments. Just a few things. We didn't have a meeting between our last city council meeting and this one, but I want to make sure staff knows that on Wednesday, February 20th, is the Council of Governments Awards Dinner. We'll be honoring a person who's been very integral in helping regional development. So hopefully we can get a couple of people to attend that meeting on the 20th, that awards dinner on the 20th. Since the last meeting, I've been working with various stakeholders to bring together a meeting with folks at the City of Newburgh and other government jurisdictions to discuss redevelopment at the former paper mill there for recycling. And I've been tracking legislation at the state legislature related to homelessness and housing affordability. Yesterday, House Bill 2001 got introduced. That is a big change potentially to local zoning. It would be a lot more state control over what cities can do in terms of residential zoning. Could have a very big impact on our city and other cities of our size. So that's something to pay close attention to. And the other major housing legislation that's being considered are statewide rent control policies. So trying to stay up to speed on that and make sure that they get the perspective of local governments as they consider that legislation.
Thank you, Sal. Kelly?
Well, I reported out on Visit McMinnville last time, so I'm going to talk about the budget, or the audit committee tonight, since it kind of ties in with budget too. And I just wanted to, several different things. Tanya, our auditor, is here, and she's fabulous, and we always enjoy meeting with her. She will give you more in-depth information, but one thing she will probably reiterate, but I'm going to say it as the chairman of the budget, or chairman of the audit budget committee, I'm sorry. There's several things that I would like you budget committee people to consider in the next few weeks. You all, I think, have a copy of the audit, and I would really like all of you to sit down and read through the management discussion and advice information, the MD&A. It gives you a good feeling for what has happened this year with our finances and other things, and where the money's gone and where it's come from. There's also coming up, I believe, within the week, a League of Oregon Cities budget program.
March 6th.
March 6th, okay.
In Willamina.
In Willamina. And it'd be wonderful if anybody who's new on the budget committee or on the council, if you had a desire to go and see this program. I think it would be well worth your time.
Just let Melissa know and she can sign us up for that.
Right. And then you might want to go out to the Oregon Department of Revenue website. There's a 17-page information pamphlet on the Oregon budget law, and you might want to pick that up and just take a look at that also.
And I think, Marcia, you'll get that out to us.
Yeah. So those things said, just another congratulations, because once again, the GFOA Certificate of Achievement Award has been given to our wonderful accounting department, and well-deserved. And this is 20-plus some years, so that was for the year ended 2017, June 30th, 2017.
Okay. We'll have another opportunity to clap on that, but
I'm sure we will.
thank you, Kelly. Just a couple of housekeeping things from my perspective. City and county dinner on the 21st of February in Dundee. Let Melissa know if you want to attend that. Also, this last week, we had an opportunity, Jeff, myself, representatives from the police department, from engineering, met with YCAP and met with McMinnville Water and Light, talking about Dustin Court and Marsh Lane, and really having a good discussion about the things that we're doing. I don't think our story gets out too much of the proactive things that we're trying to do and how our hands are tied a bit. I think we're looking forward that was so successful that we're going to want to, in the very near future, have individuals that are property owners and businesses out in the industrial park together to have a like discussion that I think will help us really understand and work together in the issues that we're dealing there. And so I just wanted to bring the council up to speed on that, something that happened last week. I'm going to very quickly go around to department heads. Again, it seems like we're closing when we're doing this, but Matt? Okay, Kaylee? Thank you, Kylie. Marcia? Susan?
Just a couple of things. One, on March 12th at your work session, the Kids on the Block assessment will be coming forward for discussion. The consultant to Oregon Ask will be here to present their findings to you. And it's not too soon to start thinking about soccer season. We're less than a month away from soccer starting. We're watching the water levels closely. But just a reminder, soccer, we have over 650 kids that participate in our soccer program, kindergarten through 6th grade, so it's a great opportunity. There may be a few slots left if somebody still wants to get in it. You can call the community center.
Thank you. Heather?
Just wanted to let you know we did go live with our new e-permitting software on Monday, so and it's been successful, thankfully. The state has been with us over the last 2 days and will be with us tomorrow as well to make sure that all the kinks are worked through the process, but we appreciate our development community partnering with us, and we're all learning together.
Thank you. Mike? Melissa? David? And Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. A couple of things, just a reminder that the city offices will be closed next Monday in observance of President's Day. I wanted to let you know that the mayor and I will be giving separate presentations to the Leadership McMinnville class tomorrow afternoon. Joy, I've got about 150 slides. I hope everybody's ready. It's something we get to do on a regular basis, but particularly given the focus on civic leadership and our strategic plan, I think the presentations will have a little bit different flavor this year. I will also let you know that as a follow-up to this team building work that the council and the executive team did a couple of weeks ago, we should have a final report from the consultant, excuse me, in your hands by the close of business at the end of this week. And we have already scheduled a follow-up work session with the council to discuss your working agreements in April on the 17th, and Eric will be back to facilitate that. Pardon me. And then finally, Thursday is Valentine's Day. Remember your sweethearts. And I will also say that while it may not sound very romantic, it will be my second anniversary of in the city manager's role. And I think I think that the trust and the support and, dare I say, the affection that we have for this community and the community has shown for us make it a very serendipitous date to remember for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank the public just for being with us through this process. I think it really highlights the good work that's happening outside of the council. Our committees are to help the council be more effective and having reporting out. Be aware that any of you can go onto the city website and go under council and agendas, and all of these meetings that we have talked to, the packets and the materials associated with those packets are available. And so, again, in our desire to have transparency and sharing and involving many, that's why we've done this. Thank you. That now takes us to item number 5, our consent agenda this evening. And for consideration, we have the minutes of our November 13th, November 27th, and December 11th work session and regular meetings. We also have for consideration an OLCC request for winery first location license for Sea Craw, located at 1722 North Highway 99, Suite 3, and also consideration of a OLCC request for a limited on-premise license from Roth IGA Foodliners Incorporated, located at 1595 Southwest Baker Creek. Is there anyone on the council that would like to remove any item off of our consent agenda? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion.
So move.
And a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Kelly and seconded by Wendy. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda as delivered, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please indicate by nay. Consent agenda passes unanimously 6-6 this evening. Our next item is consider a noise ordinance or a noise variance request from Mrs. Polson for a June 15th, 2019. And so I'll call on City Manager Jeff Towery to present and go from there.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Ms. Paulson is getting married on June 15th at 915 Southwest Cozine Lane. They would like to have amplified music from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. that evening. Our code provides an opportunity for a waiver granted by the City Council. We have granted similar waivers in the past, and in some cases have requested that the applicant provide some notice in advance to affected neighbors. If the council chooses to vote in favor of a motion allowing the waiver, we will notify Ms. Paulson of the council's approval.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion among council?
I believe that's Austin and Mobile Park development in my ward. Have you heard from anybody that are neighbors that might have concerns?
I don't know that the neighbors are aware at this point. We'd ask the applicant to reach out to the neighbors, though, and let them know.
And in times past, I think we've made that a requirement, have we not, or?
Yes.
Just ask, okay.
Not typically in a requirement in advance of granting the waiver.
Okay. Okay.
So I think the applicants are here if you've got any specific questions for them.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Any questions?
See you there.
Okay.
What kind of cake?
If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a motion to approve the request for the waiver.
So moved.
Okay, so Sal has moved and Zach has seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. So this waiver is granted and passes unanimously 6-6. And so we'll direct the city manager to write a letter to the Polsons and Mr. Johnson confirming our action. You're here, you know that, but we'll get something out to you in writing also. Thank you. I'm going to take just a few moments right now. Last Tuesday, we had the opportunity to have the second annual awards reception and the state of the city, and just had a great turnout, a great fun in celebrating our successes this year. But a part of that was to recognize some individuals in our community for what we call the pillars of the community. And we had an opportunity to recognize Jody Christensen for her good work as she moves to the governor's office. We had two other recipients that were not able to attend. One of those was Kelly Menke, and as you can see, she's in a sling and she's with us tonight. And so I'd like to take just a few moments and recognize Kelly as a pillar of the community for her work. And so Kelly is currently the council president and has served in that capacity since 2017. She also represents Ward 2 since 2004. She retired from her accounting practice after 27 years in 2014. Kelly currently serves as a treasurer, a board member, and a volunteer at the Soup Kitchen of St. Barnabas Episcopal Church. She has served as a treasurer and board member of the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. She served on the board of Habitat for Humanity and the Library Foundation. She brings her financial expertise to the Budget Committee, where she now is the current chair and has served for over 20 years, and is a member of the City Audit Committee, a member of the McMinnville Sunrise Rotary, where she has served twice as president. She has served for many years on the Newburgh-Dundee Parkway Committee, along with numerous other council assignments and committees. She's a listener, she's an implementer, and has a well-rounded perspective of city and civics. I'd like to recognize Kelly Menke this evening for the 2019 Pillar of the Community Award. Kelly? Do I dare give you 3 minutes to respond? Go ahead, just.
Well, just to keep it very brief, it's an honor and a privilege to work with the city staff and with all my colleagues up here and with everyone who I've worked with in the past. It is just so much fun to be a part of this. And, you know, all I can say is thank you very much. And I appreciate all of you and think you're wonderful.
Again, thank you, Kelly. Again, it's such a pleasure to have been able to work with you over these number of years, and the help that you are as council president in the many, many meetings that you go to and participate in. The other recipient, Erin Stevenson, her mom's still in the hospital, and Erin is with her mom and has been there for the last week and a half. And so, Erin, we will recognize at a date that she's available at a council meeting coming down the road. So, thank you. what we're going to do now is, I'm going to open up a joint meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and the City Council for the next piece of business that we do. So I'll open up our Urban Renewal Agency meeting. And we're going to have the presentation of our audit report for the 2017-18 year, and so I'll call on our finance director, Marcia, to introduce our auditor and present the findings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You do have on your agenda this evening a presentation. This is Ms. Tanya Moffat, who's a partner with Marina & Company. This is the third year that Marina & Company has done our financial statement audits for the city and the Urban Renewal Agency. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tanya. She's on the Oregon Board of Qualifications Committee, the OSCPA Board of Directors, the Governmental Accounting and Auditing Strategic Committee, the Leadership Development Strategic Committee, Portland State's Accounting Advisory Board, and Tanya has served as a reviewer for the GFOA Certificate of Excellence. And I do want to note that because she is a reviewer and obviously very well qualified and has great credentials, Tanya and her staff have also played a part in the city receiving the award that we spoke of earlier. And their suggestions are always welcome, and their review of our statements and all of the documents in the report are very detailed, and we always really appreciate that. And they've been great to work with, and as I mentioned, she's just a really great resource for us. So Tanya met with the audit committee this afternoon, as Councilor Menke mentioned, and so she's here this evening to review the results of the audit with the City Council and the Urban Renewal Board.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I'm happy to present the June 30, 2018 City of McMinnville's financial statements, as well as McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency. Like Kelly stated earlier, the city received the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report award from the Government Finance Officers Association. This is a very high-level award, and this is something that goes to show what the accounting department and the finance department does for the city. There is some additional information that's put in the financial statements, including the transmittal letter and the statistical section. The statistical section is a great section in the back of the financial statements. It has 10 years worth of historical data. So if you're looking to see how the city's doing in comparison to previous years, sometimes there's new accounting pronouncements that make it not so comparable, but for the most part, it takes a lot of time and effort. Although Marcia said that it was us, it's really them. They spend a lot of time and effort to put together a very nice financial statements. And this award is only awarded to people who make sure that they have the transparency and put the time and effort into the financial statements. So it's a very prestigious award that the city receives. Yes, they've received it for several years, but it's still something that's an ongoing thing that they're taking time and effort to put together for the council and for the citizens of the city. So I just want to draw your attention to how prestigious this award is. And so they received it for the June 30, 2017. We anticipate that the city will receive it for the June 30, 2018, but you have to wait till the financial statements are done to send it in to have the reviewers look at it. So I'm happy to report that we have an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on both financial statements. And I do want to draw your attention to a few things in the city's financial statements. So as Kelly stated, the management discussion analysis, which starts on page 15 of the financial statements, this is a great place to look because there is historical data, and so you have 2018 and 2017 information in this particular area of the financial statements. It's a great snapshot of what the city is doing and where the city is at. And so the management discussion and analysis is a great place to look at just a snapshot of information of what's going on. It's probably one of the best places to look at and to read. I do have to admit that this is not audited, but we do look at it to make sure that it's consistent with the other financial information in the financial statements that we do audit. I'd also like to draw your attention to the statement of net position, which is on page, 33. And so I just want to point out one thing, because there's a new government accounting standard. It's GASB 75, which is other post-employment health care benefits. For those of you that have been on the council for a little while, you may remember when the pension, GASB 68, came about, when we had to put the net pension liability on the financial statements. This year, there's a new accounting pronouncement, other post-employment health care benefits, which is OPEB. And so there's some new numbers that you're going to see on the financial statement. So if you look a little bit down, there's a deferred outflow of resources. We have deferred outflow of resources, OPEB. And then if you go down a little bit further to liabilities, there's some additional things in the non-current liabilities, as well as then you go down a little bit further to the deferred inflows of resources, and there's deferred inflows of resources for OPEB. So I just want to draw your attention to this, because these are changes that the city had to comply with because of the Government Accounting Standards Board. This is something new that they're putting in and have as a regulation. This is not something that the city decided to do themselves.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what OPEB stood for?
Other post-employment health care benefits. What that means is essentially retirees that have qualified through the city, the state requires that they have an availability to stay on the city's insurance until they are of Medicare or Medicaid age, which is 65. And so for that tiny gap, those individuals then contribute and pay for their health care insurance. But what it does is that those individuals are a little bit older, and so it brings up the rate for the rest of the pool. And so then the city is paying a little bit higher rate for health insurance for the active employees. And so there's this implicit rate subsidy there. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but there's something that I can show you that makes me feel very good about where the city is at. And this is on page 93 of the financial statements. So this is the schedule of contributions of OPEB liability. And so it has the statutory requirements and then the contributions that the city is implementing. And then the column next to that is the contributions deficiency or excess, and there's no numbers in there. So that's great. That means that the city is paying what their required contributions are, and they will eventually pay that liability that's sitting there on the books. This is just like the pension liability when it came on the books. So if you look at page 96, this is the schedule of contributions, and this is for the pension or PERS. You can see that there's the statutory required contribution, and then the contributions in relation to the statutory required contributions, and there's no deficiency. If there was a deficiency and the city wasn't able to make their payments for those contributions, then I would be concerned about those liabilities, because the city is maintaining and contributing based off of what the state is saying that you have to pay those liabilities off. I feel comfortable with where the city is sitting on these. So it's changed on everybody. This is a nationwide thing. This is not something that's different. These liabilities have always been there. It's just that the accounting standards are requiring the cities or entities to put this on the financial statements. So those are that's the significant change from last year. Everything else should be basically comparable to the June 30, 2017 financial statements. One other item I would like to draw your attention to is on page 68. And this is long-term liabilities of the city. And so this is a great schedule, because what it has is it has the current liabilities, or the long-term liabilities. So it has a beginning balance, which is the June 30, 2017 balances, then any additions, and then any reductions, which is what the city has paid during the year. And then the ending balance is at June 30, 2018. So the nice thing about this schedule is it also shows what's due within 1 year. So as you guys are looking through, and this is on page 68, when you're looking at the budget for this year, the due within 1 year, this is the amount that's going to be required in the fiscal year June 30, 2018, and then additionally from when you're looking at the budget for June 30, 2020. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that schedule, because that's a great place to look at and see what those long-term liabilities of the city are going to be. Oh, there was one other thing I was going to point out. On page 161, again, that's page 161, this is the legal debt margin of the city. And so this is one of those statistical schedules, so it's 10 years worth of data. And so it shows over on the far right-hand side on 161 for 2018, the city is only using 24% of their legal debt margin. So the city is in great financial health for if they decided to go out and get some additional financing. They have really good bond ratings and stuff. And so as well as you still have 75% more that you could go out and take out if you wanted to. So I just wanted to.
And you can see how, look across the last 10 years, how we've really maintained. We've had some highs, but not much lower than where we are today. And so, as we had those discussions with the Budget Committee and with the council, that shows, it really shows where we're sitting from a debt capacity.
So we just wanted to draw your attention to those things in the city's financial statement. I also want to present on the City of McMinnville's single audit. So what this is any time that the city spends over $750,000 of federal expenditures, then the city is required to do a compliance audit or have a single audit. And the city spent $5.3 million of federal funds for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018, and I'm happy to report that we had no findings and no non-compliance. This is difficult to do because that includes making sure that all the reports get to the feds on time and things like that. And so I want to just draw your attention to the fact that you're individuals that are responsible for making sure that the city is in compliance with this federal funding requirements, that they're doing an excellent job. And that includes the finance department, that includes the airport department, that includes the city manager. So I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there are no findings here as well. So that concludes my presentation on the financial statements, and then I was also going to explain to the council that we have been contracted with the city to do a franchise fee review for Recology based on the rate review. And so we have some experience in this area. We do the City of Portland's rate review, we do Washington County's rate review, we do Lynn County's rate review, we do a lot of other jurisdictions' rate review. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use that knowledge and that experience from other jurisdictions and bring that here to City of McMinnville, and when we're looking at this rate information. We also are going to take out those outliers. So currently we have a spike in recycling expenses due to there's no market for recyclable goods right at the moment, and so individuals are having to pay to get rid of recyclable goods. So we kind of pull that out when we're doing the analysis so that it doesn't go in as a rate increase when maybe it might come back down later on. And one of the things that we specifically look at when we're looking at larger entities, such as Recology, we look for those related party transactions and those overhead expenses that come in to make sure that the ratepayers here in the City of McMinnville are not paying for overhead expenses that are not in your jurisdiction that shouldn't be applied appropriately. So I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that we are going to be looking at that for the city. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements or on the rate review that we will be completing?
So questions? Again, I know this is not an easy read, not much narrative there, but as we talked about, that management discussion area is something that is readable and understandable and puts some context to some of the numbers that are there. Again, we're so fortunate to have such a good working relationship between our auditors and the finance department, and as an audit committee, Kelly and I have been doing this for a number of years, and we are very excited about our continuing stewardship when it comes to the financial pieces of the city. So, again, any other questions?
I would only ask if you could address the question Mr. Davis raised earlier in regards to other municipalities and whether or not they have franchise agreements, and then who's paying for the audit.
So with the jurisdictions that we currently work with, a lot of the franchise agreements are very outdated or franchise certificates, so it's not uncommon to have situations where they're old like that. And typically, the entity is paying for that, so the city is paying for it or the county is paying for it. We don't go in and look for these numbers. We request the information from Recology, and then we go in and analyze that data, and we compare it over previous years and things to look at that.
But Remy, I think that with some of those issues and concerns that Mark brought up, that we can work with our auditors to make sure that the reporting coming to us in the future is in the format that we need to see. Okay, this will be our first opportunity to really do an in-depth audit of some of those overhead costs and some of those concerns that were out there. And so I think this is going to allow us to have a better working relationship and us to be on the same page, so to speak. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
And now's the time to thank the Finance Department with a clapping.
If anybody has insomnia, make sure you read the pension note.
Marcia, take our thoughts back to your department, because I know the accounting department, the finance department is, they just work and work and work, and they're not seen like a lot of our other departments, but we're very, very, very pleased with what we're getting. Thank you.
Always very much appreciate the acknowledgement of my finance team. I also always like to mention that really this document and our compliance with our internal controls and the numbers being accurate is really an effort by all of the departments of the city.
Thank you, Marcia. If you turn in your packets, next what we have is the American Council of Engineering Companies has an annual program that they go through to recognize projects that are warranting awards. And the ACEC of Oregon has given a Engineering Excellence of 2019 Grand Award, and this is going to be presented to the City of McMinnville and HDR for the Northeast Alpine Avenue restoration. And so Larry, if you'd come up, as you were the project manager on this. I know we've had a lot of opportunities to look at what we've accomplished out on Alpine Avenue, but knowing that this was a project that brought together many people, a lot of people that had input on that, a lot of citizens, a lot of businesses, but the project itself was it was made sure it was on time and within budget through your efforts. And so on behalf, we'd like to present this to the City of McMinnville and into the Planning and the Engineering Department for a job well done. At our most recent State of the City, I shared a lot of my thoughts on what we've accomplished there. We've built it, and now we're watching things come. So again, congratulations. Take it back to the department, and Mike and group, thank you so very much.
It's a team and a city award. It's not an individual award.
Well, we used transportation money, we used urban renewal money, we've brought things together. We had great consultants, but we got it done from a city perspective. Thank you. That now takes us to our resolutions for this evening. And first resolution we're looking at is 2019-11, a resolution accepting the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency's annual reports for financial ending June 30th, 2018. And so I'll call on the Planning Director, Heather Richards, to present.
Yes, so Mayor and Councilors, this is an annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018. It's required by ORS, and what it is intended to do is to show how the agency, what types of revenues the agency collected in that fiscal year, and then how it was expended. And then also what the projected collections are for the next fiscal year, which we are in currently today. We bring this to you as a city council. You then adopt it, and then we notice it in the paper for the next 2 weeks, so anybody can come into the city and review the financial report. And we also put some of the charts and tables in the paper as well. So it's really a measure of being as transparent as possible with this program. I think what's interesting about it is looking at it, our annual property tax revenue that the Urban Renewal District is generating, and this is property tax revenue generated above the frozen base, which still gets distributed to the overlapping taxing districts, and then the city collects that revenue that's over and above that, is about $200,000. So it's not a huge increment for an urban renewal district. It's still very young, but we've managed to do a lot with it, and I think that's very surprising to me how much we have been able to accomplish with our current increment in terms of the Alpine Avenue project, which just won an award, and several of the facade improvement projects that we've done and other development projects that we're investing in. So the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee and the Urban Renewal Board have been hard at work at really thinking about how to leverage this money as effectively as possible with other partners.
And I just make a mention to the charts that are part of this report. I think if you've ever wanted to really zero in on the financial workings and where some of our dollars have gone, as Heather had indicated, the transparency's there. This is a document that you might want to print off and keep with you as you're talking to constituents of how the Urban Renewal District is working. But I found that to be very interesting reading. So any discussion among the council or questions for Heather? Quality document and a quality program from my perspective. Hearing no discussion, I will ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2019-11.
Moved. Second.
It has been moved by by Kelly and seconded by Remy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Resolution 2019-11 passes unanimously 6-6. And I got so excited about the award. We are going to close the Urban Renewal Board. Okay, we're back in session with but in that we were talking, it just kind of rolls over maybe a little. It was a joint meeting, yes. Thank you, David. We're going to consider Resolution 2019-12, a resolution amending a personal services contract with Echo Northwest. We'll call on Heather to update us on this resolution. Heather?
Yeah, so this resolution authorizes the city manager to sign a contract amendment with Echo Northwest in the total of $62,000. This is an amendment to an existing contract that is $70,000. So because it's more than 25% of the base contract, it is coming to you for that authorization. It is, our existing contract is for our buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis that is currently underway. This is the amendment to that to be able to do the urbanization study and the update to the economic opportunity analysis that we discussed at a work session a couple of weeks ago. I am happy to share with you that we did get an additional $10,000 from the state to help us with this effort. And so the total contract will be, help me with the math, $132,000 with 70 plus 62,000, and we'll have about 40,000 of grant funds in that.
Thank you. Just to update, I think it was last Friday that we had our public open house on some of the materials that have come out of that, and we had a good attendance to that, and was able to share some of those first findings. And I guess it wasn't Friday, it was what, Wednesday or?
Last Tuesday.
Okay, last Tuesday. Thank you. How time just rolls. But we did have a good, and the, our community development office was very involved in bringing that to the table. So let's open it up for discussion among council. none, then I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-12.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Remy and seconded by Wendy. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Resolution 2019-12 passes unanimously 6-6. Our next resolution, Resolution 2019-13, is a resolution naming the property known as the Northwest Neighborhood Park as the J. Pearson Neighborhood Park. We're going to call on Ann Lane to come up and present to the council on what we're doing. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to be here before you tonight to discuss the formal naming of the park currently referred to as the Northwest Neighborhood Park. We are excited to be under contract for construction of this park and will be setting the timeline this week. In addition to questions about the awesome play features of the park, we are frequently asked what the name of the park is going to be. In following a tradition of naming spaces after notable community contributors, we are proposing that the Northwest Neighborhood Park be named J. Pearson Neighborhood Park. In addition, please be advised that we will likely be back with an additional proposal to properly recognize those that have contributed specifically to the playground portion. It is the council's decision to proceed with this recommendation of naming the Northwest Neighborhood Park the J. Pearson Neighborhood Park, as proposed in Resolution 2019-13. Happy to be here tonight. Thank you very much. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ann? I see almost the whole back of the friendly faces and those that have been with us for many years and given service to this community. But what an opportunity it is to take the good work of Jay and memorialize that in the naming of the park. I know in my years on the council and my opportunity to travel statewide, Jay's name was very, very, very much known throughout the various communities in the state of Oregon for the great work that he accomplished for this community. We have great parks. We have great vision, like many other aspects of this community. And so it's with real great pleasure that we're able to do this evening. We're going to give Jay an opportunity to talk at a later time when we dedicate the park and do some of the fun things around that. But tonight, it is, we have a resolution in front of us. And so what I would do, any discussion, if none, I would ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-13.
For the discussion, I just want to chime in. I'm super excited and honored to be a part of McMinnville City Council, and very much so in order to be a part of this resolution. I'm sure, Adam, you did too, but I grew up playing around on all those playgrounds and actually played for Jay Pearson when he coached a baseball team, and can attest to his great depth of patience and passion. And he was an incredibly strong and positive role model for a lot of kids that came and went on the parks for organized activities, unorganized activities in the streets between the parks and everywhere. He was a terribly, incredibly positive role model in my life specifically and on a lot of kids I know. And so it brings me great joy to be a part of this decision. And I can't think of a better person to name the new park for.
Thank you, Zach. Any other comments or thoughts?
I would just second everything Zach said, and also, Jay, when you presented at the Kiwanis auction and the passion that you had at that, and how much money was raised at that Raise the Paddle, it was astonishing to see, and your passion spread throughout the crowd that night. And so, congratulations, and I look forward to voting for this for you.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, I will now ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-13.
So moved.
Okay. A
Second.
second? It's been moved by Zach and seconded by Adam. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no, nay. Resolution 2019-13 passes unanimously 6-6. Congratulations, Jay, and thank you. Before us now is Resolution 2019-14, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2018-19 and making supplemental appropriations. And so, Marcia, I'll call on you to bring us up to speed on this resolution.
Thank you. I would refer you to the staff report that's in your council packet. This resolution is proposing a supplemental budget for the General Fund Administration Department because of the unanticipated receipt of donations for public artwork that will go in the new roundabouts out on Hill Road. And the McMinnville Committee for Public Art successfully raised sufficient funds for the purchase and the installation of the two sculptures. One is entitled Nepal 2, and the second sculpture is titled, I can't pronounce this, Steve. Okay, I can do that. It says something about Talapa or whatever. Okay, Coyote. Very good. In addition to the donations from individuals, the Oregon Community Foundation, the McMinnville Area Community Foundation, the city is also contributing $10,000 each from the 2018 transportation bond proceeds. Oregon local budget law does allow the government to prepare a supplemental budget when an occurrence that wasn't known at the time the budget was prepared. We can amend the budget through a supplemental budget. This budget also makes appropriations to allow us to expend those unanticipated donations. I would mention that Mr. Steve Rupp is here with us tonight, and as always, he's very instrumental in making this happen. He is also very passionate about public art, and he has some information to share with you.
Being an old guy, paper, not electronic.
Paperwork, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
About the two works that are going to be going in there. One work is done by Lee Kelly, who is a nationally known sculptor that lives in Oregon City. His work appears in the Portland Art Museum, Seattle Art Museum, and various other museums throughout the country. We were lucky to be able to get a piece there. We did negotiate the price down a little bit. That's just in my blood. I just can't take the price. The other one is a sculpture that's going to be done by a Grand Ronde sculptor named Travis Stewart. That is being made from scratch. We've recently signed a contract with him. If you pass a supplemental budget tonight, he'll actually get some money to start buying the material to do it. That will be delivered around the middle to end of September. It'll take him that long to make it. It's titled Coyote. It's made out of Corten steel. His initial proposal there says it'll be powder coated, but it will not. It's Corten steel, and it'll have a coyote head on top. It is made out of red cedar. The original proposal was 16 feet tall, but we're ended up with about 14 feet tall. He's concerned about overturning moment with wind and stuff like that. The Lee Kelly piece is paid for. As Marcia said, $10,000 came from the city, $17,000 came from Ronnie LaCroute, $7,000 came from me, and the one on Hill and Baker Creek Road, $10,000 came from the OCF, Oregon Community Foundation, $10,000 from the city, and then there's a whole list of private donors you'll find at the bottom of that document. We're really excited about seeing these in. I'll tell you, it's been a long haul. I'll never forget the day that you guys, not you specifically, but the city council said, there's these two roundabouts, and we'd like public art in the middle of them, and I said, what's the budget? Nada. So, I really owe a debt to Mike. I actually bribed him. I said if he'd give me $5,000 of seed money for each roundabout, that I'd put in $5,000 to match it. So he did, and I did. And as a result, that gave us the starting point to be able to move forward and get other people to contribute. So thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you for the opportunity to put these pieces of work in, and I dearly hope the city likes it once they get in.
Well, Steve, you know, you've been so successful in bringing art to the downtown area and the core area, and to be able to take it out into the suburbs a bit, just an appropriate extension to have art out in the areas where we've put so much time and effort in to make traveling easier. We'll have some art along the way too. So thank you. Thank you. Any questions anyone would have for either Marcia or for Steve? Go ahead, Sal.
I just wanted to say, Steve, I've only been made aware of your involvement in getting all the art around the community fairly recently, and I just want to say thanks for all that you've done to make this such a beautiful downtown, and the work that you've done on Hill Road, and your personal investment, both of time and money, I really appreciate.
Thank you. I can honestly say it's been my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. I really like doing it.
Very passionate. Okay. Thank you, Steve. So I am to a point where I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-14.
I so move.
Second. It's been moved by Kelly and seconded by Wendy. All in favor of favoring resolution or passing Resolution 2019-14, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed signify by saying nay. Resolution 2019-14 passes unanimously 6-6. This now takes us to consider a second reading of ordinance number 5061. This will be the second reading of this ordinance, and so we'll have the city attorney read this by title only.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 5061, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan map designation from residential to commercial on existing properties and lots of record, rezoning said property from R4PD, multiple family residential plan development, to OR, office residential, and amending an existing planned development overlay district to remove said property from the planned development.
Thank you, David. Again, just to remind everyone, this is a property that is to the east of Walgreens, and we had the first reading and a lengthy discussion at our last council meeting. So I'll open this to council discussion.
I'll take a moment just to restate or perhaps clarify my remarks from the last time. For fear that anybody misinterpreted that I have any distrust of MV Advancements or their intent to provide housing, I certainly don't. I'm grateful that they want to bring a housing project in, and I can't emphasize enough how desperately needed the housing is. What I shared last time and what I'll share again tonight is that we are in a desperate need for increased density land and zoning. And so while I understand the intent is to build office first and then housing, the availability to build the housing is there right now, and I feel it would be a disservice to what I'm going to repeatedly ask of this council, which is to consider higher density zoning throughout our city to make exceptions to that rule. I feel very strongly, we know we need higher density zoning, and I understand the intricacies of this agreement, and I understand that with the agreement you have with Linfield, that you would only be able to build the same number of units regardless of this zoning. However, I still feel it is very important, and by no means am I saying this with the thought that I would be swaying this council in any way, but I just wanted to clarify and let you know that you have my full support. My desire would be for you to build the housing first because we so desperately need housing first.
Thank you, Remy, and for your passion. Other comments from the council?
I would echo Remy's comments. I think she's spot on. Density is a huge issue, and land is just at a huge premium. So I would tend to agree with her in spirit, yes.
Okay. Other comments? Hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to adopt ordinance number 5061.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So we've got Wendy that gave the motion and Adam that gave the second. I'll call on the city recorder to poll the council.
Councillor Drapkin?
Nay.
Councillor Garvin?
Aye.
Councillor Geary?
Aye.
Councillor Peralta?
Aye.
Councillor Stassens?
Aye.
Council President Menke?
In the spirit of wanting to have more density, I will say nay.
Okay. After the roll call, ordinance number 5061 is adopted by a vote of 4 to 6. What? 4 to 2, excuse me, 4 to 2. And so this ordinance passes. Okay, that takes us to the conclusion of this meeting. You've got information in your packet dealing with financials, as always at the end of our packet. And so I will adjourn our meeting at this point, and then we were going to have a opening of the Urban Renewal Agency for a presentation, but we're not going to do that tonight. So this concludes our meeting for the evening. Thank you all.